It is 7 p.m. on October the 12th, 2023. This is the meeting of the Town of Westport Personnel Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Tonight we have two presentations from, as a result of our RFP for classification and compensation study. We have representatives from the McGrath Human Resources Group as well as GovHR USA. You're going to have to remind me, which one did we have scheduled first? McGrath?
Yes.
McGrath, okay. So McGrath has been scheduled to come up first. I'll just introduce the members of our board and who's present here in our room. My name is Cindy Brown. I'm chair of the Personnel Board. We have Carrie Cunha with us, who is a member of the Personnel Board. Online also you will see Nancy Holsworth, who's also a member of our board, and James Hartnett, who is the town administrator. This call is being recorded and will be available for public viewing within the next 24 to 48 hours. So I guess I will begin with McGrath. You can introduce yourselves and give us a brief overview of what you propose.
Sure. I'm Dr. Victoria McGrath. I'm CEO of McGrath Human Resources Group. We are a firm that has been around for 23 years. We were formed in May of 2001. So this is obviously not our first compensation study. With me is Melena Halverson-May. She's a senior consultant with the firm. She's been with us for about 10 years and plays a major role in all of our studies. I do have a very brief PowerPoint. Do you want me to go through that at this point in time, or did you want?
Will she be able to put it?
Yes.
Yeah, if you can put it up, yeah, that would be great.
Sure. Okay. And then I'm sure GovHR will do the same. Let's see.
And I will tell you, we all have your packets in front of us as well.
Perfect. And I'll try to make this brief because obviously we have a bit of time. Does everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As I indicated, we are McGrath Consulting. We were established in the year 2000. We basically have two sides of the business. One is McGrath Consulting Group Inc., which is the parent company, and that does public safety consulting, police, fire, EMS, and dispatch. And then we have obviously the HR side, which handles all of our compensation studies. We have branded a brand that we call McGrath 360 Comp, where we look at compensation from a number of different factors. And so therefore we do not have a cut and paste approach, but basically we will tailor whatever type of compensation system that is going to be what the town of Westport needs to have. We do that through a number of different methodologies. One is working with elected officials and looking with the personnel committees, talking to them about compensation philosophy, what are challenges and concerns that you have with your current plan. In addition to that, we spend time meeting with department directors. We want to make sure that we understand your organization and the nuances of your organization when it comes to the positions. And we do try to engage employees, and that can take a variety of forms, from meetings to voice over PowerPoints, but also having them engage through something we call our position questionnaire. We do have a position questionnaire which we couple with the job description. It evaluates a position in the 13 different competencies, and through that we can take a look at differences in positions and how they should align both externally with the market, but also internally within the organization. This is now done virtually, so employees receive an email that are selected. Once they complete the questionnaire and they hit complete, it goes to a supervisor automatically for review, and then it automatically comes back to us, so there's no paper handling by the town. We do have a paper version for those departments that may not necessarily be very computer savvy. My response has always been, I can't run a bulldozer, and so therefore they may not be able to have the computer skills to do it. There's several steps to our studies. We do a market survey. We will work with you on what benchmark positions that need to be. We will have you approve those ahead of time. And then obviously we will align all of that information to your compensation philosophy, which will be working most likely with the town administrator and personnel committee in developing. We will do a data analysis where we get data from benchmark positions. In addition to that, we do look at your demographics, your turnover, years of service, average age. That information definitely helps us try to align what type of compensation system you need to have. And I believe in your proposal, you were also looking at some benefits. Benefits, if I read it correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking, between the various groups that you have, and then either providing you or working with you in developing a performance management type system for one of the groups. So together we're then, once you have all that information, we're going to sit down and say, what kind of compensation system do you want? We can do anything from performance-based, which I think is what your performance evaluation tool wanted to capture. We can look at a step system. We can look at a combination. Basically, again, the goal will be to make sure we align your goals and objectives with the type of compensation system that we can provide for you. Once we have a draft compensation system, we do want to sit down with department directors again and go through that. Sometimes our interpretation of a policy may not necessarily be the same as reality, and let's try to clean up those issues and concerns while the document is still in draft form versus having it go public at that point in time. We will also have the costing, so we can determine if there needs to be any type of implementation strategies, based upon the cost of the plan, cost of implementation, does it need to be multi-year, etc. We do present two different reports. One's a policy manual, and it will help the town, what did we do, what's the salary structure, if there's any career progression, what some of those things should look like, how do you then implement and maintain that structure so that it doesn't go out of date on you. We then will pare that down to an executive report for public distribution, and then obviously make any type of presentations that we need to, whether it's the Board of Selectmen or employees, and then whomever is going to be in charge of that document going forward, we can provide with their training to make sure that they understand what that they need to do. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I think I'm going to stop sharing.
You did.
Okay, because I lost you. Good, oh, there you are, because I lost you. So I don't know, if you want to ask questions now, or...
Okay, I'll turn it open to any questions from our board members. Nancy, do you have some questions you'd like to start with?
Sure, thank you for that, first of all, Victoria. So can I just clarify, it sounds like the methodology for the assessment will be first of all, like an assessment form, like to evaluate, and then interviews happen. Does that interview happen with every individual?
We do interviews with department directors to get a flavor of the department and any nuances and issues and concerns. With the positions, the position questionnaire is completed by employees. We used to, at one point in time prior to COVID, we did do employee meetings. For some reason, those just really have not come back, but they can. So if we needed to do meetings with employees, we would do them with small groups of folks that we would kind of configure together, because sometimes we like to hear, administrative assistance is always a great subject. Everybody's administrative assistant does more than everybody else's. Everybody becomes an expert on that, and sometimes getting administrative assistants together in the room and hearing them and hearing the differences can help us with those position differentiations.
Okay, so then the people you meet with are the department heads, and is it to go over each position then under them?
Yes.
Excellent.
We do what we call a thumbnail sketch. Just, you don't need to read the job description, but, let's talk about an equipment operator. What does your equipment operator do? And because an equipment operator could be anybody from a laborer to somebody who needs a CDL and runs multi-million dollars. So we go through each one of those positions. We talk with department directors then about issues and concerns that they have with those positions. We ask them what type of comps, where should we go look for that information, so it's at that level.
Excuse me, Cindy.
Yeah.
I wonder if GH hours on this as well. I
Oh.
wonder if they'd like to log out and log back in at, say, 7:30? Is that?
It's an open meeting.
It's up, yeah.
They can stay on if they'd like. That's fine. Okay, Nancy, any follow-up questions?
Just a final one.
Yeah.
I can't remember where we left things, but in terms of writing job descriptions, is that a possibility?
Yes, we do have this as an option in the proposal. We typically prefer to do those job descriptions at the end of the project. That way we can capture any type of changes to job titles or, we created 3 levels of the equipment operator and, now we can capture that information within those job descriptions.
Okay, thank you.
So to me, that's kind of a chicken and an egg issue, to me, that, how can you assess the dynamics of a position without having already determined what the proper job description is for that role, regardless of whether or not the employee feels that it's part of their role. I mean, so, we're the first to admit that some of our job descriptions are outdated and need to be realigned with many of the positions that have had to either be grouped together, bunched together, and so forth. So it's, to me, it's kind of hard to assess and give a wage assessment if you don't have the proper job description first. But as now you've just indicated, you kind of tend to do that at the end. I don't know how does that work logically?
Melinda, did you want to do that one or should I?
I could do that. Good evening, everybody. My name is Melina Halverson Mays, and that's actually a relatively common question. When we have the employees complete the position questionnaire, the position questionnaire asks what their essential functions are. We want to hear directly from the employee because we often know that job descriptions may or may not be kept up to date. In a perfect world, we would say yes, they are updated with once a year, but the reality is that oftentimes they are out of date. We want to hear from the employees what their perspective of their essential functions are. Plus, then we do a quality control check with that because the supervisors are reviewing all of the information that's been provided to us before that's been submitted. And that allows us then, along with those department meetings, to start running that analysis piece. There's a lot of conversation in the classification process after we have analyzed the position questionnaires through our position analysis process, along with looking at what that market is telling us that like and similar positions need to be paid. And part of this whole process is going to be, how do we establish that compensation system? What is that hierarchy going to look like? Generally speaking, how do classifications need to change, or how do we need to blend them together? And once we have that agreement, is what I'm going to say, we're working directly with the directors or the project manager on the town side. That is where, in this process, we're going to be taking as an example all of those administrative assistants, and after we've run that analysis, it's very common to see multiple levels that are not necessarily true levels and that they're doing very similar work. So after we all come to that agreement at the end of the project that those positions really should be in the same level, that's what allows us then to take position questionnaires. Even if we have outdated job descriptions, we're going to use that information as well, and we're going to update that class spec or that job description in draft form. So then at that point, then we're going to send it back to the town, and we're going to let the town do a review of that, where then you can make any adjustments or modifications that you feel that we may not have captured in the essence of the job description, and then we finalize it after that point. Because it comes at the end of the project, there are times when we look at the job descriptions, if perhaps during the study or we have a reorganization, positions have changed, Or sometimes positions might be, maybe a department has inflated some responsibilities because they feel that that's going to get them a higher wage, but then when we go to do the job descriptions, that changes a little bit. That's the kind of conversation that I have with the project manager at the end to say, all right, this is what we got out of the study, this is what I'm seeing in the job descriptions, now we have to come to some sort of consensus of what we're going to do. So we'll let you know if there's something problematic out of the job description process at the end that could potentially change a pay grade in a particular position. It tends to work out pretty good. I can't honestly say that we've had any clients that have not appreciated the process once they've gone through it.
Okay, thank you. Carrie, do you have any questions?
It's a unique town here. How would you make sure to grab all the outliners of each position? Things maybe the heads of the department don't know.
So,
With some
and I
non-heads
just want to make
at
sure
all.
that I
Some of
understand your question. So, because you're a smaller organization, sometimes you might have positions that wear multiple hats, or they maybe the director doesn't know all of the nuances of what the position really does. Is that your question?
Yes, and some don't have directors necessarily.
Oh, okay. Well, do they have, if I can ask, and if they don't have a director, who do they report to?
So they may report to a volunteer board such as this. So
Okay.
many of the volunteer boards have clerks with various responsibilities depending on the type of committee that they are supporting. And some of those involve a lot more detail than others. Some are, minutes and filings, of meetings and keeping track of documents. And others require a lot more expertise and perhaps timeliness of what they need to do. But the title may be the same.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't really have, some have direct supervisors and some do not. So it's, so things have, over the years, have gotten very wonky because of that you have people throughout town hall that have been rewarded due to their years of service or seniority. So all of a sudden a job title changes rather than including a step. So we don't have a step plan here, so it was a way to reward employees by giving them a different title, but in fact, the job is really the same as the other person down the hall who maybe has done the same work 5 years less. I'm just pulling things out. I mean,
Sure.
I want to make sure that we capture all of
right,
that.
that, because so many people have had to do so many roles that they didn't initially expect to.
Okay. Victoria, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
You're on a roll, go for it.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the position questionnaire because that really is going to be the opportunity for the employees to tell us what it is that they do. We would hope that we will have an opportunity to have that position questionnaire document reviewed by somebody, even if it's not a department head, even if it ends up being a committee member.
Right.
Now, we understand that if you're not there on a daily basis, that you may not even know the ins and outs, and there's going to be some element of that, and we understand that. But when we look at the responsibilities of the position in the position analysis process, we analyze it over multiple different areas. And so if we have someone who does filing and the next person that doesn't, typically that's not going to be enough to warrant whether or not a position needs to go into a different pay grade per se. And Victoria can speak a little bit. She can speak a little bit more about that. But the reality is that what you're talking about, where you have over time rewarded individuals with title changes. And so an example is that I was talking on the phone this afternoon with a client about a position that is titled an office manager, and they are not an office manager. They are a legal assistant for the office, and they do legal documents for their attorney. They have no supervisory responsibilities, they have no budgetary responsibilities, but over time, they've been given a different title. Part of that process, part of that interview process, and perhaps if we don't have a director, we're going to have to make sure that we involve those committee members to understand from your vantage point what they're responsible for. This is the time then we're going to want to clean that up and make those changes, and that's the classification changes. We really do need to understand what everyone is doing and align them properly, and then that classification or that job title that we give them does need to be consistently applied across the organization. And sometimes the reality is, and speaking with the committee members, because you're likely part of the outcome, sometimes when it gets to this point, it becomes very personal for the employees, and we understand that, but we approach this on a project basis where we're looking at the systems, the organization, and the position, not necessarily the person. And having that objective third-party look really allows us to set aside any of those emotions that might come into play with a project, and then we help you navigate that at the end. Victoria, is there anything else you want to talk about with that?
No, I do want to say though that, we have had some organizations, in fact, I'm going to be working with one right now where, it's a county, it's very decentralized. There is an HR department, but it may or may not be involved with the different types of positions. And so we're kind of restructuring some of our methodology to make sure that we include, in this case, it happens to be elected officials that are in charge of those departments. It may or may not be a department head. And so if we need to involve, as Melina has indicated, any of the committees or a member of the committee to represent the group, we can modify our process to make sure that everybody feels that they have their say and that they're included in there. And that we do get a true picture of what the position is.
Carrie, any other questions?
I have one more. How frequently is your data updated?
We get our data for every position right on the spot. We do not keep old data. We do not try to trend up data. So we will be working and getting that data at the time of the study. Right now, in fact, we're talking about when do we go out and get that data for some of the new clients that are coming on board right now, because we want to make sure what are their budget processes for the folks in the area. And so we might delay the start of the project until November or December so that we're actually capturing 2024 data. But we will develop the comps list with you. We will have you approve it. We will get that data at that point in time. We might need your help at some point in time asking us to get that, because sometimes not everybody wants to play nice in the sandbox and turn that over. And sometimes, a word from the town administrator saying to help us out will give us that information. But no, we capture data for every project new for that project.
So I noticed that in your public sector history, the East Coast will be kind of new territory for you.
A little bit, yeah. We definitely are definitely presence on the West Coast. We are on the East Coast in the way of we've done a lot in Virginia, North Carolina. Quite a while ago, we did up in Maine, but your area is a little bit new, which is exciting. It doesn't take us long to figure that out. And I grew up on Massachusetts Avenue, so it's an omen that I work in Massachusetts. Believe me, as a kid, learning how to spell states was easy after living on Massachusetts Avenue.
Right, whether you're from Massachusetts or Mississippi, it was certainly a lesson in how to double up consonants, that's for sure.
That's correct.
Jim, did you have any questions?
Yes, hi. I apologize for the technology here, but we're making do with what we have. Just time-wise, you had a schedule about 4 or 5 months. How realistic is that going forward, and what might slow you down?
The only piece of the puzzle that's slowing us down at this point in time is getting the external market data. Depending upon how large that data set has to be and how cooperative your neighbors are is the only thing that has been a little bit sidetracking us. Once we get that data and then we get moving, then it takes off and we can keep the ball rolling. Unfortunately, for the first time in 23 years, we're actually having to do more open records requests for data because they're just not submitting it, and that just stalls the process. But we do keep you informed about that. We ask whether or not you want to wait for that data. Do you want us to do that? Do you want us to get it there, or can you help us out getting it?
So how would you go about getting the data in general? I mean, are you polling towns
Sure.
around us? What is the process?
We have a consultant dedicated to that. So the first thing we do is we get the counts from you. If you have any contact information, we appreciate it. If not, she data dives through the sites to try to find who it is that we need to contact. We personally call them or send them an email to let them know that it's coming. And then we do have a survey that we send out. But the organizations have two options. Option one is to complete the survey. Option two is just provide us your data. Give us your salary schedule, give us the benefit stuff that we want, give us a list of your employees, and we'll do all the hunting and pecking for you and do it. The good part about that is we can do a lot more positions that's one on a survey because you can you limit how many positions are there. Otherwise, you're not going to have anybody complete it. But you then also, it takes a little bit more time because we're doing all the diving through all that data to make sure that we find the comparable positions.
Nancy, you have a question.
Thank you, yes. So just in regards to the salary benchmarking data, that's exactly what I was going to ask next. So there's no one source you use? How do you define where you're going to go for the data?
For the data, we're going to look at a couple things. We're going to ask you, as well as your department directors, who's around you? Who are you competing with? Most of your positions are within an hour or so drive around your area. That's where most of your employees are coming from. Do we need to go someplace different, further out because you do have a unique setting that you need to deal with where you're located and the type of environment? So are there any other type of coastal type towns that we need to get to? We prefer to stay in state, but we will go outside of states if we need to have something. You've got, and I don't think you have it, but an airport. There's only so many airports that we can get information from, or you have a convention center, or something unique that we have to go out with. So we look at that. If you want to, we can also look at the private sector. And some cases you are competing with the private sector, and so that we have some sources that we use to get similar types of positions so we know how you're competing with the folks around you as well.
Thank you. So it sounds like you're going to approach neighboring towns with the list of job titles and ask for them to provide the salaries for those, and hope they give it to you in a timely fashion. What does that normally look like?
We typically allow 2 weeks for them to give it to us. We have an extra week of what we call begging, a begging week, where we try to reach out again and plead with them and call them. And then we'll most likely be talking with you and saying, well, do you know anybody over there that we can get it? And usually if you step in, most likely we can get it within in a relatively short time. And if not, we then say, okay, we have these 2 places left that are not playing nice. Do you want us to do an open records request? And then you can decide with the timing on that whether or not you want to do that or not.
Thank you. And so added to that, do you factor in any extra complexity, like they might have a pay scale that includes grade and step, or some might just be market rate? Do you try to get any information on that and how their progression works?
We definitely will get that if they send us the data. And the respect by that, I mean, instead of filling out the survey, we ask, give us your salary schedule, give us that, so we can see what they actually have, in their systems. And I will tell you, probably at this point in time, more people do that than fill out the survey itself. They just don't want to take the time.
But is it difficult for you to know whether you're comparing apples to apples?
No, between looking at the job titles, most places have their job descriptions online, so we'll go online and take a look at that. So no, every now and then you can tell by the data, we've got an outlier. You look at the data and you've got 3 positions that are paying 60,000 and 3 are the same thing are making 20,000. It's like, okay, we got a disconnect here. We don't have the right data set, and then what are we going to do about that to resolve that issue?
Okay. I don't believe I have any other questions, Jim?
Just the job descriptions, if we didn't go forward with the job descriptions, would that hinder your analysis as far as the
No.
periods go?
No. It's basically, the job description phase is codifying everything that we have done up until that point in time.
And do you make other recommendations as you go through the process if you see, the departments that don't have enough staff or that compared to other communities, is that anything that you point out, or is that?
We will point it out, but we're not doing a staffing study. We want to make sure employees understand that we're not doing a staffing study because we don't want them to feel that, if they answered incorrectly, their jobs are going to be eliminated. But we have made recommendations, whether it's in writing or sitting down with the project manager or committee and saying, hey, this department seems to be a little bit lean, or you've got a little bit of duplication here. Maybe if you separated it out. But obviously it'd be more informal observations than it would be an actual staffing study.
Go ahead.
I have a question about privacy. What measures do you have in place to protect our data?
We do have cybersecurity insurance, so all of our data is protected that way, and then we have multiple backups at the main site here to make sure that data is secure.
And once completed, how long do you hang on to it?
We try not to hang on to it that long, just because you never know, and plus there's only so much file storage space.
Sure.
But we do keep, certain documents quite a while in order to make sure that we have them. Especially our goal is to establish a relationship with a client. It's not once we're done with the study, you're cut off and we never talk to you again. Of course, unless that's what you want. It's nice to keep some of that data so that if it comes back and say, hey, can you pay grade this for us? Or, next year we're looking at what type of salary increases should we be giving. We can take a look at the information that we have on you. I just came back from a client that I actually started working with in 2004, and we're on the 4th update of their comp plan along with various other projects. So, as I say, hopefully do not offend anybody in the room. We're not attorneys, so emails and phone calls are free.
The other thing, just to follow up on that for the security, there really is only there's only one piece of data per employee that we ask for, and that's to run your demographics. And everything else is a matter of public record. We're not, it's their name, it's their department, their title, and what their wages are. But when we run the demographics, which is going to include the date of birth, and oftentimes what we can offer, if there is any concern about that, we can run that without having the employee's name on it. Without any problem, we can slim down that information and still be able to run that demographic. And some organizations have opted to do that in the past, and that is no worries whatsoever. We'll work and accommodate those types of concerns that might pop up.
Excellent.
So that kind of leads to a question of mine. So what factor does the age of the employee give you, other than particularly if you're not doing a staffing analysis, that you're not looking to see how people are going to retire, that you've got a bulk, a distribution of people that are going to be retiring soon, and if you're not doing that type of analysis, why is it important for you to have demographic information like that?
The reality is that we will take a look at what your employee base looks like in terms of longevity with the organization. Because it's important for you to know how many people are on the cusp of retiring, and so that demographic we will be taking a look
Okay,
at.
okay.
Yeah, because for your purposes as an employer, you're struggling with, do we worry about recruitment or do we worry about retention? And sometimes sometimes it's both, and a lot of times it's based upon, are your employees, are they getting ready to retire? There is, we've seen organizations that we're telling them in the next decade, you're going to lose 40%. 40% are eligible to go within their state retirement system. And so you have to absolutely be worried about recruitment because, as soon as someone gets age eligible to go, let them go. They want to go, they deserve to go. And so we have to really worry about, is our recommendation going to support your recruitment efforts? And then some organizations, it's, well, we've already gone through that wave. We lost everybody. We have a lot of new staff. They've only been there for a handful of years. And in that case, now we're talking about what do we need to do within your model to help retain your personnel. And so it's good information just from that level.
Okay.
It's really about as deep as we're going to go.
That's good. That's good to know. Because, as it was mentioned earlier, it is absolutely critical that the employees know that this is not a way for us trying to assess whether or not we can minimize positions and how we're trying to do that. It's for our benefit, it's for their benefit to make sure that we do have, competitive wages and that people are being paid what they should be paying given current market conditions.
Absolutely.
I'll go one more round. Any other questions?
I think I'm all set.
Yeah, that's it.
Nancy, are you good? Yep, okay. So, all right, well, thank you very much. This has been very helpful to us. We need to meet with the select board at some point in the near future to discuss this further, to see what our timeline is and what our funding capabilities will be for this project in total going forward. So thank you very much. You're welcome to stay on the line. As GovHR has been on the line, it's entirely up to you. So with that, I am just going to, I'll let you get set for the next group from GovHR. I just gotta grab something from my bag. I left it over here. So you can start. Introduce yourself.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm Joellen Cavatorri. I'm the CEO of GovHR USA. With me is Kristen Melpignano, who is a project manager for classification and compensation. I do have a brief PowerPoint. It's structured a little bit differently. A lot of what you've already heard is a similar process that we have. It is in our proposal. I'll hit the highlights. But there's some other things that I wanted to talk with. And just by way of background, my career in local government before I started consulting in 2011, 17 years of it was in Massachusetts. I worked in Central Mass and on the Cape. And we've had I think we're approaching probably 60 clients in Massachusetts just on class and comp, or comp or classification, depending on what they need. Many are in your area. In Dartmouth and Hingham and Lakeville and Abington, and some up 495, some on the Cape. And the other thing that I think is important for you to know is while I was on the Cape, I managed all the waterfront functions. So I am the only one at GovHR that understands what the harbor masters do and all of that. So I can talk with them about their particular line of work. But I also wanted Kristen to just be able to say hello and tell you a little bit about her background as well.
Thanks, Joellen. I'm Kristen Melpignano. I was most recently the Human Resources Director for Milford, Mass. And we employed GovHR to do our recent comp and class study. So I was in your seat not too long ago. was born in Massachusetts, raised in Massachusetts, Wakefield, Norton, Milford, most recently where I live. And so I'm very familiar with the area. I'm currently doing some studies for Attleboro and Upton and Norton, actually, so fairly close to where you folks are.
So I'll share my screen. And, I'm not used to Google Meet, so I'm not sure how to share. Do I?
So it's the square with the arrow on it, if you click on that.
Entire screen. Oh, hold on, I got it. It lets me share it. I'll click on, okay, this is like Teams. Okay. Tell me if you can see this, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So these are the things that I want to talk about. Again, I'll hit the highlights. I think, what McGrath Consulting does, it's very similar approach as far as classification and compensation, questionnaires, talking, having people fill them out, having them reviewed, developing a classification plan, getting information from the market to do the compensation side, and of course benefits as well. But I'll talk about the different project components, the benefits of doing a project like this. Sometimes people say, well, why do you want to embark on doing this type of study? This is emotional for the employees, and it is tedious and it is a lot of work, so it is an undertaking for the project team on your end. Of course, we were partnering with you, but it is a lot of work, so you need to be prepared for that. What happens when the project's over? And a little bit more about our experience, and then of course we're partners. So you actually, we have to work with you. We need you to bring things to the table, and then maybe why would you want to consider engaging us? And of course we'll answer any questions that you have. So we are a national firm. We were just at the conference in Austin at ICMA. We have 5 more states. We're trying to say, if we see anybody from Hawaii, we need to talk to them. We've been very fortunate to work around the United States. We do executive recruiting, and we do consulting, and we do a lot of class and comp work, not only in Massachusetts. I think we've worked in 17 states, and we only work in the public and nonprofit. And when we talk about nonprofit, we mean groups affiliated with local government, like the Mass Municipal Association, or the Maine Municipal League. So we've done work with those associations as well. We are a certified women-owned business. I own the business with my business partner, Heidi Voorhees. I focus more on the consulting side. She focuses more on the recruitment side. And then we also have a separate firm for staffing in local government, Temps USA, and we have several temps in Massachusetts as well. We're based in Illinois, but we have people living all over the country. I actually just relocated back east. I have a lot of family in the New York area, so I'm in New York City now, and as Kristen said, she's in Massachusetts right now. But we have people working with us around the country. But what are the different project components? So, we talk about that comparable community analysis, and we actually go through a pretty involved methodology in order to determine comps to Westport. So we get our information from the Department of Revenue, and we apply it through a matrix, essentially. We'll look at population and proximity, but then we look at a lot of financial data to make sure that the communities to which we are requesting data are most like you from a financial perspective. Because when we talk about pay philosophy, when we talk about how competitive you want to be as a payer, a little bit down the road, and we make recommendations for pay ranges, we want to make sure that it's founded in a financial analysis which demonstrates ability to pay. So it's not an arbitrary, review. Now, you might say to me, well, we want to, compare to Swampscott, they're down the street, or we want to go maybe a little bit further, maybe to the South Shore, and get some of those communities, because we regularly compare to that. So even though that community might not, make our cut, there's always a level of comparability. So we can run any community through our matrix and see how comparable they are to you, and then you can make the conscious decision to include them. So it's not that we don't talk about it, but we show you, if we were going to put, these 8 criteria that we look at, these are the ones that we really should focus on because of the similar ability to pay. Then we'll do a salary and benefit survey. We will use the survey instrument as well. I can tell you definitively, in your area, people are not going to respond to the survey. I mean, we have done this over and over again. What we have found to be very helpful is to have you as a partner and your staff. You know, we did a big study about the same size in Duxbury, and public safety wasn't having it because they didn't think we had enough comp data. And I said, look, we had a list of everything we did. You know, we sent the survey, we went on the website, we pulled as many pay plans, classification plans as we could find, but some communities don't have information on their website. We called them. We don't ask for things through public records because we just think that people don't like that, and the purpose is to get data. So we said, let's call your colleagues, you know, call your peers in other communities, get us the data, we'll put it into the matrix, you know. So sometimes it really helps to have that partnership because people are busy, you know, even though we tell them, we'll give you a copy of the results, sometimes people are just busy and they can't get to it. So we do have a huge database of information in Massachusetts, which is helpful because what we will do from time to time is we may dip back into it and then we'll update it for present day dollars if we can't get some information. So it's nice having that as a backup. We don't rely on it. We always do it fresh, but if we need to, we have that and then we can update it. So, you know, for a study your size, you can't get all of the positions through a survey. It would be too large. So we'll pick benchmark positions, ones we know we'll find in other communities, and then we're going to supplement that data. We're still going to ask for pay plans. We're still going to get information off websites to get as much data as we can to have a really robust data set to analyze. On the benefit side, we'll work with you to pick out some benefits that you want to compare to. And then we'll pull that together and we'll talk about that and what are your goals in analyzing that, because you know what we find is that benefits really don't, you know, they don't vary too much from community to community. So what's your objective there? You know, do you want to look prospectively? Are there new benefits communities are offering or whatever? So we'll include that in the survey as well, and we'll get that information. The other thing we'll do is an employee kickoff meeting. And that meeting is really important because, as I said, this is emotional for people. People need to really understand what this study is and what it isn't. You know, it's class and comp. It's, like it has already been said, it's not a staffing analysis. It's not an org analysis. It's not about performance. It literally is, we're looking at your job, where is it classified, and is your pay competitive. So we have, we do that virtually. We can record it, we can have more than one, depending on whatever you need. And then we also answer any questions the employees have. They also know too that they can contact us at any time during the study if they have a question. So we get that going, and then we go through our whole process of the questionnaire. You know, we explain that questionnaire in detail. You know, what are we looking for on each one of those? We have 9 factors. You know, education, experience, all the way through the technology. We tell them, you know, if you're a supervisor, you may want to be thinking about this, and we really, really go through and explain to them, you know, what is internal equity? Why are we doing a job analysis? And let them answer questions. We then go to an interview stage. So we actually do interview every position. So you have 140 positions. Not only do we talk with department heads, we interview every position. So we don't interview every employee because that would be too difficult. So in a case where you might have a few people with the same title, you know, we'll work with you to say, you know, we'll do a group interview of up to usually 3 people. We might pick somebody that has more tenure, you know, more seasoned, somebody that's early career, maybe somebody in the middle. And we let you tell us who's going to come to that group interview. And then, you know, sometimes there's the 4th person that just really wants to interview. We make it work. You know, we don't want anybody to feel like they are not able to participate. So we go through that process and we develop a classification plan.
Oh, did you freeze? Yeah,
The other thing, I'll read data back.
there we go.
As you, positions titles vary from community to community, so we want to make sure we're getting the right data and look at it. So, and then, you know, we pull it all together. We spend a lot of time with you going through the analysis to make sure that you're comfortable with it, and we put together a report with our findings. And attached to it is the questionnaire the employees fill out, the comparable community analysis, and then all of the data on the salary side and on the benefit side. You know, so when you think about doing this, you know, it's obviously something that's important to you, but these are some of the benefits that we like to share, you know, in case you need to impart it to someone else. You know, developing those comparable communities based primarily on financial criteria, we think it's very positive. It's helped with unions, you know, sometimes because you have this analysis and you have it for the future. Internal equity, you know, when we talk with employees about their jobs, all of those nuances that they have, we get to learn about, and we get to create a plan that's unique to Westport. Because, you know, people's jobs have changed with COVID, everything, you know, it's involved, you know, and employees want to be heard, and we want to be able to understand things, because if they go to the next town over, they go to, you know, Mattapoisett, they might have the same title, but they might not be doing exactly the same thing. So that internal equity is really what drives your system, and we spend a lot of time up front doing that with the directors, department heads, and your employees. And then what that ends up doing is it turns into pay equity, right? So internal equity, it says all the positions in the same grade have to have the same salary range. And that pay equity, it allows you to be in compliance with the Massachusetts Pay Equity Act, Equity Pay Act, MEPA. So that's another thing that's really important. That internal equity is important, and then you comply with the law. So our system complies with MEPA, and you'll be good there. The competitiveness is important. You know, we'll talk with you about what are your goals for recruitment and retention, and making sure that those ranges are competitive, you know, based on the pay philosophy that you'll set. And then, of course, you know, we give you a manual. We have a whole manual on how to maintain the system, and it will last you 5-10 years, you know, or more if you maintain it, both on the compensation side and the classification side. And we're always available. You know, if you have a question a year from now, after the study's done, you know, you can reach out to us, and we're happy to talk you through it. And then afterwards, I just said that we'll be available to you to help you if you have any questions. And we don't charge you for that, it's just a service. We want to make sure you can use the system. You know, when you go through this, when you involve your employees, you want to implement it and you want to maintain it. And one thing, you know, we've done so many studies, you know, when you say, okay, well, what's a strategy for implementation? You know, we can talk with you and help you do that. Every single one of the studies we've done have been implemented. And we've done probably approaching around 200 now. And we're proud of that because we work with the client to make sure that you can implement it and we can help you with your strategy. We have these deliverables at the end. You get the manual, which explains exactly how to use our system. You have an electronic questionnaire that you can use in the future if you need it for another job. And then you have the tool, you know, on how you classify a job into your new classification plan. And we'll train you on it. And believe me, for anybody that's part of the project team, by the end of it, you'll all be experts in it because it really is a partnership between GovHR and the town. And then, of course, this is an undertaking. You know, I don't want to tell you that it's not. So we need a key contact person or people, a team. We're going to need a lot of documents from you to get going. We usually have you upload things through Dropbox and make it pretty easy. We need some assistance in scheduling the kickoff meetings and the interviews. All that's done electronically. You know, it's really easy to do, but we need you
to brain freeze.
Help us with that.
There you go.
We donation, and then I'm sorry. Oh, and then just disseminating the reports at the end.
You're free. We were only commenting because you were freezing up from time to time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I okay?
Yeah, you're okay now.
Okay. And then just, you know.
Yeah, you're gone. There you go.
Am I okay?
Here and there.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Everyone that works for us has evaluated people to interview employees. They're subject matter experts.
All right, so yeah, you're breaking
And
up a
they've
little
done
bit
work.
more. You're
Yeah,
breaking
so
up a little
works
bit more
with
now.
Smith's tape. Okay, I don't know what to do.
That's all right. It's, I can assure you,
Kristen, you can talk too if it gets bad.
Yeah, happy to jump in.
It's all
Okay,
right.
why don't you finish it up? This is the last slide.
Having been a client, I can tell you safely that they do follow through. They do go through the completion and it helped us implement the study. I will say that I know one of the other questions that came up previously was about tailoring to meet expectations. Every one of these studies is different. There's peccadillos with the different municipalities. Everyone will say, well, all of this is the same. Hey, we've got this one little problem here. And so I think it's important that our staff recognizes that, and I've been in your seat. They do the study, and then we have a lot of meetings and we talk about the nuances that we have to incorporate and make sure that everything you want out of the study we can get and incorporate all of the concerns. So that's really important. And it is very timely. I can say that we finished our study. We were very concerned because we had to get it through town meeting, and ours was done. We needed it for February 1st. I think it was the first week of February we got it. It was a 4-month process, and we were very happy with that. So.
Would you, I'll just jump in there as a segue to that. Would you expect that this would also be a 4-month process?
Yes. Go ahead, Kristen.
No, please. I was going to say, what was the question? I didn't, it was cut off a little bit.
Oh. Yeah, what would be your timeline, given the numbers that you have here, roughly 140 different jobs? Would you still expect that it would be about a 4-month process?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we set a timeline, and I agree with what was said before. It's getting the data from the market that's
Right.
hard, and that's, and if you asked us to slow down, we work for you, we everything went upside down during COVID, so, we're able to work with you, but if everything goes as planned, we set a timeline, we have milestones, it does take about 4 months from start to finish.
Okay, that's good to know. You ready to kick off with some questions then? You set with your presentation. Okay. Nancy, I'll let you start.
Thank you. I have a similar question about job descriptions. I couldn't see that there was anything in your, it was a very comprehensive presentation, thank you. But is there anything that could be done for writing job descriptions?
Joellen, you folks.
Yeah, sure. What we tell in our questionnaire, actually, I agree, we do them at the end as well. But the questionnaire, we have employees look at their current job description, and we say, mark it up, cross out anything that's no longer relevant. And then on the questionnaire, there's a place to define the job and write down anything that's new. And so even if you don't need us to do the job descriptions, I always tell clients, like, if you can get an intern, like, this is a great intern project, because it's a really good way for you to gather data. And then through the interview process, we say, okay, what's different? Like, what's changed? Tell us what's happening in your job. And we make notes, so we have a bunch of notes. So even if we don't do it, you still have all of that information, so it's fine to do it at the end, because through that process of talking with employees, we really know what they're doing. So it's okay. I mean, we've had places where they have wonderful job descriptions, and we have some that basically have a scope of services. And so, this is an opportunity to update them throughout the process.
Okay. Anything else, Nancy?
No, I'm fine for now.
Karen?
I'm just going to ask you the same question about security and what you do with our data, how you protect it.
So we don't collect any sensitive data at all.
Okay.
Everything's public information. We have things on Google Drive. We send you everything in a draft until you're ready to actually accept it. So our final report is a draft until you're ready for it to be done, and then it's public information. And then, I kind of highlighted all the things that you get. But you will get our worksheets, because a lot of that's all tied together, and you may want to use it for the future. But we don't have any sensitive information that we request of you.
So you will not provide a aging, so to speak, of the employee base?
No.
Okay.
And the reason, what we do instead, I guess a different way to get at that is, when you do this type of work, you're really doing org analysis. You know, it's kind of a side benefit of it. So we talk with you up front about your expectations and about what's happening. And we talk with the department heads, you know, so, and and we've worked with communities like Westport that have different boards that are, you know, overseeing departments. We understand that model. But if there's anything that needs to change, we learn that up front. So you might say, we might want to, you know, create new jobs. Somebody's going to be leaving, like, so we can help you restructure things and reclassify jobs, you know, for your future goals. So we kind of deal with it that way, through conversation.
I'm curious in your scope of different clients that you've had, particularly in Massachusetts. Two questions really. One, do most of them have an HR department? And then secondly, do many of them use a step plan versus just an annual, you know, performance review, so to speak?
Yes and yes.
Yep, I know. It's kind of funny because Massachusetts is a little bit unique that way. You know, we always want to see open range, you know, merit-based plans. And I was just talking with somebody in Massachusetts yesterday about rewriting their recommendation for a defined increment plan or a step plan, because the unions, you know, are getting their steps and the non-unions are not. And so, you know, they still want to try and put in a merit component, but it's in Massachusetts in particular, you know, there's quite a few communities that still use defined increment plans, where in other parts of the country there are open range plans. And some have HR, and sometimes we work with personnel boards. Usually there's somebody in town administration, you know, if there isn't an HR. So it just depends on the community. We've worked with really small communities to, you know, the largest, Concord, I think, was the largest one we just finished. That was maybe 160 classifications, but we've done many around here, you know, between 120 and 150 or 60 in Massachusetts. And one, I'm trying to think of who we just finished. Well, Duxbury was 140, and they're pretty close to you. Mm-hmm. They had an HR person.
Nancy, are you, you're done with your questions, Nancy?
I think so. There was enough in the presentation that my questions were answered.
Okay. Carrie, you're all set? Jim?
So you mentioned it's an undertaking for the town as well. How much of an undertaking is it, and who's responsible for that undertaking? Are we looking at department heads, employees, administration?
Well, the employees, we need them to fill out the questionnaires, you know, and there's some tricks there, because sometimes people might say, I don't want to participate, you know, so we work with you to make sure that, you know, we ask everyone to be engaged for all the positions that are covered by the study. We also would recommend a reconsideration process down the road in case somebody's not really comfortable with the way things turned out, so they can ask some questions. And so the project team, it could be a group of department heads, it could be somebody from the board, you know, and some staff, but would be key staff, you know, that we would have to work with. And we just need to set time, you know, all of the things I was telling you about, the survey, getting it ready to disseminate. You know, Kristen's going to oversee all of that. We do all of the work. Where the time comes in for you is really looking through the preliminary analysis. I mean, you know, we have to look through the scoring of 140 positions. We have to make sure you're comfortable with where they're classified. Then we pull in comp and benefits, and we talk about that. So it's hours. It's not weeks. You know, it's probably, I'd say 10 to 20 hours, and it's not all at once. You know, and it could be that much. You know, all said and done. And it's spaced out, and we have milestones, and we plan ahead. You know, we say we'll send it to you, and then we set some time to talk. But whoever is on that team, you know, especially when we get to the point of reviewing the preliminary analysis, for your study, it's probably going to take a few sessions to get through it. so people really understand the approach, can ask questions, and that they're comfortable with the classification plan as we're recommending it.
So once the results are done, how is that perceived by the employees at the end? How have they, different communities? We all deserve more, we all want more.
We ran into that in Milford. Actually, I shouldn't say it that way. We anticipated that and we didn't run into it. Because the way the process is laid out, there was communication, there was education, and there was an understanding of exactly how the process worked. It was backed up by data, which they were thrilled about because the prior study was not done well. And they were just very impressed with the consistency of the way it was handled. So people were engaged in looking at their job description. They were engaged with the job analysis questionnaire portion of the program, and then we just continued the communication so that they understood what was happening and what was going to come next. And so when we get to the point of displaying the classifications, it had whittled down a lot of what we expected to be pushed back to almost nothing. And it was extremely helpful to go through the comp analysis portion of the program and explain to them where the data came from and that it was public. It really took over the crowd and silenced it. It was a much better process than we could have expected because everybody told me what the barriers were going to be, and then we just went right through.
And do you find some of the employees?
And another,
I'm sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, another example different from Milford, we didn't do a reconsideration process in Milford, but we did in Concord, because there were 300 some odd employees that were involved there. And by doing that, if you present, we get everything to the point where it's basically done. But then in presenting it to the employees and allowing them to give you feedback before it's finalized is also another way to kind of put, the icing on the cake, because you're engaging them, you're asking them to participate, and then you don't want to just say, okay, here, we're done. You want to say, okay, here, we're done. What do you think? Does this look right to you? Did we miss something? And sometimes we do. Sometimes the things have to move a little bit. Other times they may not like it, but they understand how it got there. And other times they're fine with it. So you have to anticipate that. And by building in that process, it just allows more credibility, because it really is emotional for people, and we really treat it that way, and try and keep them engaged, throughout the process.
And do you find employees submitting their own data, their own comps, their own
Yes.
information, and how do you incorporate that into?
Well, I'll give you a good example. So I don't know if you have good salary range data, but we'll have people say, well, the so-and-so in this community makes this amount of money, and so-and-so, we do our own little surveys. And I'm like, well, okay, that's fine, we'll take that information, that's helpful, but we really want to try and get range data because it's a better gauge of the market than if you just have an actual salary, because you don't know how long someone's been working in a particular jurisdiction or, what their tenure is, so we take it. If they want to give us stuff, we take it. We don't say we don't want it. We'll take a look at it. But we're very clear in our presentation as to why we prefer range data. And if for some reason we don't have enough and we only have actuals, we'll build a range. We'll create one. But that's really what you want to end up with. And sometimes we need the employees to help us. Like I gave you that example with Duxbury, and that's okay. If they want to give us information, we'll take it.
Now, it used to be that, public employees always felt that they got paid less, the benefits perhaps were a little bit better, but their salaries were a little bit lower, but the job security was a little bit better, so they were always willing to perhaps accept a little bit less. Do you find that now more and more public employees are comparing themselves to the private sector because they know that they could go and take their skill set and apply it to the private sector and perhaps get more money? I mean, so does that ever come into a comparison that it's like, well, as the previous speakers had indicated, I mean, sometimes you you have to use the private sector as a comp. CDL drivers, for example, if you're competing in the highway department for drivers and laborers, do you have to use the private sector as a comp for the wage?
So we generally do not like to do that because of the financial ramifications of it, So I
Right.
had a client in Wisconsin actually who wanted us to use XYZ construction company that had 3 employees as a comp. And I said, but the ability to pay is completely different,
Right.
and that wage was much lower than what the community was paying. So what we find more so is, yes, there's a compensation piece to what you're saying, but if I put on my recruiter hat, it's the whole experience of working with the local government, and that's why when I said with the benefits, you might want to look prospectively on what are you doing with schedules? Are you doing summer schedules? Are you allowing anybody to work remotely? Those I think are going to be things that are going to be more telling. Of course, compensation is important, but there's other things that people are leaving jobs because of that is not only compensation based.
Is that covered in your questionnaire?
Yeah, well, when we get to the benefit side of it, we talk with you on what do you want to survey. So that's what I'm saying. We can talk about that and say, I can tell you pretty definitively your health insurance, contribution rates, the amount of vacation, all those things are going to be similar. Unless you know that something seems to be off, you're not going to find a lot of variations on benefits, from one jurisdiction to another. But what's setting jurisdictions apart now is how they're pivoting, post-COVID.
Right.
And we're seeing. I did a session at MMA in January just about that. And talking about what you really want to be thinking about in order to attract and retain people. Because I told you I was at that conference. I was talking to a manager in California, and she has a bunch of employees that are working remotely, and they want everybody back, and they don't even live in the state anymore. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I said, well, we can help you through GovTex. Like we can maybe make this work for you. That's a different discussion, but that's happening. People are really thinking. Since that time.
Right.
What do I want? And so I think that's your time spent is looking at that compensation, making sure it's competitive by setting a competitive pay philosophy. And then looking at the other side of it, and you can even survey your employees. Like I tell clients that I said you need to ask your employees, like why are they going to stay with you too, and you can engage them with that as well on the benefit side.
Okay, I'll go once more round. Nancy, any last question?
No, thank you very much.
Carrie?
No, thank you.
Jim?
I think I'm all set, thank you.
I'm all set as well. Well, I thank all of you very much for taking your evening time to give us your presentations. They were very thorough and enlightening and will certainly help us along the way. I can't give you an exact timeline as to when our decision will be. We're kind of at the mercy of committees, but I will tell you that it's certainly at the top of our list, certainly as the personnel board, and something that we've been anticipating for a long time to get this study underway. So we will be making a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen soon, but I can't give you an exact timeline. So you will be hearing from us. Do you have any last questions for us? Any of you?
I actually did have a question.
Okay.
Did you get a grant to do this from the state?
No, this is our,
You can.
oh, you can? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Would MMA have that information or?
Because we have clients that are funding it through the grant.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if it's the community. I can't remember.
Compact.
Community compact?
Is it that? Yeah, and I think they're like $25,000 grants. I mean,
Okay.
I know that and we're not going to talk price, but
Yeah.
I can't remember if there's a threshold on that. But you might want to check into it.
Okay. But MMA would have that information?
I think you can Google it because we used it for policy.
Yeah,
You
good.
guys. Yeah.
Okay, great. Alrighty, well, thank you very much, and we will certainly be in touch with both of your firms. Thank you
Thank you
again.
very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, so our meeting is still in order. I guess we can take these things under advisement. Of course, one of the first things we know is that our funding is short. I will follow up on her suggestion and see if there are some.
Yeah, I think it would be the Community Compact Program. We're applying for an IT grant through that, I think, this year,
Okay.
but there may be openings for more than one
Okay.
grant. We can check on that.
Oh, we can check. As you're aware, we're at minimum 10 to 15,000 short of just on the compensation portion, not including the classification. So we'll have to have some further discussions about that. I'll talk with Jim a little bit about that, talk with the select board a little bit about that. So why don't we digest this a little bit, and perhaps we can reconvene, we can fill Gary in on our findings and give some thought as to what you've heard tonight. There's certainly no reason that any of us have to make any recommendations right now. Maybe we'll have another brief, we can do a remote meeting in a couple of weeks and talk about where we're at. How's that? Okay? The next one should be remote though.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, Carrie, motion to adjourn. Nancy, your second?
I will second that. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye, okay, meeting is adjourned at 8:15. Thank you.